Hello. So today we're going to be talking about how to build your network with investors. And I have with me Danielle, who's a good friend. We met a few years ago, maybe seven years ago now, when I was managing the hub.io. And at that time, you called me the networking queen, but you were the networking king. And you were also making an app basically to help people keep a track on their network and build their network. So I'm not going to introduce you. You can introduce yourself, and we start from there. We start with your story and your how you built your extraordinary, huge network of investors, how today you're helping startups connect to investors. And yeah, share with us what you know so we can do the same.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it was 2017, so I guess 6 years. But still, it's it's been an interesting journey. No, I think the funny thing with my journey is I've been entrepreneur for, let's say, 13 years soon, or actually 14 years this year. And without me actually knowing, I've basically been building relationships my whole career. And also because of the typical, my first project was running a fitness gym where I had a lot of members. So you had to build a relationship with those members. Ironically, one of those members was the one person, many years later that would introduce me to my first angel investor. So it's just one of many serendipity moments. So anyways, when we met in 2017, I was working on my startup called Mingle, and Mingle was trying to kind of create this digital business card. And then we pivoted more to becoming a networking application, which means that I was basically, my arena was conferences and events. So, on one hand, I was very used to talking to people. I'm quite extrovert. I like to, I get energy out of people. And then when my startup was also working in that context, it was kind of the best of two worlds. However, the product itself needed to be built, so I can only help that process to a certain extent. So I think I just realized that, like, as an operator within a startup, I have limited capacities, but when it comes to building a relationship, it's kind of unlimited capacities because that's where can only grow stronger and better. So, and I think that's why I'm now very much feeling that I'm in an arena where I can focus very much on my strengths, which is relationships, people, trust, seeing between the lines. So working from the sidelines, I like to say, a founder operates on the field, in sports metaphor. I would say maybe you and me, we work more from the sidelines, and it's just as important. Because the people on the field, they have struggles if they don't have good people from the sidelines. So for me, it's something I would say I enjoy more, and also because I feel that that's a place where I can really excel.
So who was your first investor at Mingo?
So I say, other than myself and my brother, and of course my co-founders, that's actually important to say. I would say that the first investors is your co-founders. If you don't kind of come up with the idea at the same time, they're the most important investor you're going to get. But in terms of like a professional angel, it was an angel investor in Norway called Trond Ribbe Knudsen, former McKinsey partner who started to,
which is probably the most well-known angel investor in Norway.
Yeah, in Norway and Oslo. The irony is that I met someone in Denmark who was kind of a very similar guy, and he's never heard of Trond, and Trond's never heard of him. So it's so close, but it just proves to show that these ecosystems are very silo based. But if you have that position, you also get the best deal flow, and that. There's a lot of interesting observations in that space like that.
So you got Trond, and Trond himself, once you have his trust, he has a huge network.
Yeah. So for me, it was a total game changer. Before, I was running around trying to get investors, and before it was kind of the day before and after I got Trond on board. I would say I just everyone I talked to was like, oh, he's on board. Okay, then they kind of looked at me in a different way. So
yeah.
So that was a total game changer.
How did you get Trond? How did you convince him? Because he's hard to get.
So actually, this is one of my favorite stories from my journey. So I mentioned it earlier that my fitness gym, one of my members, she used to work with Trond, but I got to know her in 2011, right? And then she was a member at my gym, and I used to even train her, right, as a personal trainer. So we grew a good relationship. And then in 2017, when I was looking for funding, she was like, "Hey, by the way, maybe you should talk to Trond." And this is the funny thing. When she was going to give me his contact details, suddenly the problem that I was kind of solving with Mingle, it suddenly occurred in that small moment. And I kind of found it quite hilarious. And then when I met Trond, I told him the story. It's like, when she was going to introduce us, she did this. She sent a screenshot of her website on a text, and then I have to write it down. And then I said, Trond, what she could have done was, bada bing. And then suddenly my Mingle profile was on his phone, and he was like, of course, this is maybe where I realized my strength is in the storytelling and kind of the sales pitch was very much in a way kind of captivating. And of course, that aha whoa moment was something that a lot of the first angel investors really liked, because they sense that there was something here.
Because he could relate, he could understand the problem very quickly. He could understand the solution very quickly. It was very visual, even if at that time you didn't have the app running, I think, right?
No. But I had a feature that gave him value and gave me value, and was like this, almost like a magic trick. And then, of course, what I came to realize when I created his profile, and then every time he met a new person, he would show off Mingle. And that's how we maybe got many of our first investors. It was basically through either Trond showing the product or Mingle to that person, and then they would reach out. Or
can you just remind us, for those who are not familiar with Mingle, like in short, what did Mingle do?
Yeah. So Mingle started off as kind of like a digital business card, right? So it was like almost like a micro website. Now you have 100 solutions doing the same thing, but I would say we were relatively early, especially in the Nordics, doing this in 2017. But it was basically like a micro website that had all your URL or all your links to your LinkedIn, email, phone number, and then you were just sharing that link. And of course, at the time when I met Trond, AirDrop was kind of becoming more and more familiarized. And then you can share a URL on AirDrop. So I would share my details on AirDrop. This is a feature on iPhone, if people are familiar. Then suddenly, when QR codes became more and more, when you could scan QR codes with your camera, and that when an iPhone released that, it became like a game changer. And a lot of people we met that had iPhone, you could really give this whoa experience. You could just take your camera, scan the code, and then suddenly I would appear on your phone. You didn't have any app, so of course it became this really really special ritual that people were like, whoa. Of course, that whoa was kind of the product for a long time. And then down the line, people were like, okay, that whoa is not really going to provide that much value, but it gives a whoa at least, right? So but we surfed along on that whoa, and got a lot of angels to believe in, I think, the team and my enthusiasm around it. And then
okay, so now what do you do? What do you do? What are you working on, and how did you get there?
So my elevator pitch now is, I say I used to sit on the one side of the table as a founder, and then I'm moved on the other side of the table, and that would in many ways be an investor. And then in between, I would say, you have all the advisor, etc. And so it's, when I sold Mingle during COVID, I was kind of, okay, what do I want to do? Where can I really find my new passion? I think I was kind of burned out trying to build a startup, and then I realized, I had what my exit didn't really give me that much cash liquidity, but it gave me a very, very strong network of people. So I had a lot of investors that I had gotten on board. I gotten to know a lot of investors because I was building my own startup. I got to know a lot of founders out there, and we actually created like a founder community where we would meet once a month to kind of help each other with our problems. And then I was in this process with Antler when I was, you know, I was very eager to kind of join some sort of organization that was helping startups.
Yeah, so
And
you
then
were
with
considering working for Antler. I remember that we were talking
yeah,
about.
I was in the process where I was very even, you know, they kind of, they were looking for someone, and then, you know, they were considering me, and I was very eager, and then that didn't really happen. And then instead they kind of invited me as an advisor. And then when I became an advisor, I was like, okay, this is actually smart. They have this universe of advisors, and that really builds their brand in a stage where they're relatively unknown. So I was like, okay, so and that, and also Byfounders, Danish venture capital firm, they kind of do the same thing. So and I was like, okay, but I have this own network around me. So I reached out to most of them and I asked, you know, do you want to be part of this new journey? I'm going to start helping companies, investing in companies, coach companies, but I want people to be part of this. I want and the trade-off is that, you know, I'll deliver you guys interesting deal flow. And then we create a community. That was kind of the pitch. And then that kind of grew into several directions. And of course, it's again a new startup. The nice thing is that it's quite asset light. You know, you don't need to raise a lot of money. It's just basically you just need to pay your own bills. So I kind of like that. The risk was a little lower. And then I started trying different things. But in the end, I've landed on, you know, we started investing in startups. I would find deals. I would get together a lot of angels, and we would create syndicates in that.
So these
And
angels, because you decided to leverage on your strengths, networking, storytelling, building communities, getting people together. You have a strong network of founders because you are a founder yourself, and you had angel investors, okay, within your company. However, I mean, the network of angels that you have now is way bigger than the number of angel investors you had at Mingle. Now you have a community of angel investors who are actively investing, and I'm one of them. So how did you go from your own network of investors who invested in Mingle to building a bigger network, a community of angel investors? How did you do that?
so it's again, you just have to. It's like a startup. You just have to kind of iterate and try and fail. And again, you know, this journey also had some ups and downs. You know, it started off where I was like, okay, this is really working. However, as most businesses, if they don't figure out the business model that works, if you're not able to generate income that covers your costs, it's not really going to work. So we also struggle with that in early on. However, what I saw that it was the problem here is that, you know, I was finding deal flow that maybe wasn't that exciting for the people I was presenting it for. Then I stumbled into kind of a different space, or let's say a different type of product, was I saw that a lot of the venture funds in Norway, especially early stage funds, there was very few founders that were actually investing in them, and due to typically that the minimum ticket was quite high. And then when I started to talk to them, opened up an opportunity. And then when I presented that investment opportunity to the network, suddenly it was really a product market fit, because a lot of the founders, angels, people I was talking to that didn't really respond to my previous, let's say, deals presenting. Suddenly they were very interested in what I had to present now. Also, the sums were a lot higher, so I could actually, the fees I was taking could actually generate income enough for me to do this full time.
Yeah. You pitch to VC funds, but how do you know, a lot of, and you know it, a lot of founders, for them, it's very hard to build a relationship with investors, and especially VCs. So how did you do that? Why was it possible for you?
So I guess I since I was a founder myself, I already had those relationships, because when you're a founder, you know, you have a good excuse to get to know investors, and any investor wants to know a founder, because you never know what you're going to present. So that's kind of a skill in itself. So I had that advantage.
If you allow me, maybe I don't think any founder can build relationship with investors, and I don't think that a lot of that the majority of investors are open to meet any founder. So there is like something here, an X factor that makes the investor interested in meeting you, and you, the founder, finding the right investor.
Yeah. No. So yeah, you're right. I was kind of a little too generalizing how I said. I think with the right approach.
What is the right
achieve.
approach? What do you think is the right approach?
So again, you know, this is a very, very much relationship trust based sport, if you call it like that. What I came to realize is that an investor, a professional investor, and especially if your fund is becoming recognized and you're getting a lot of deal flow, you know, the investor has just a limited amount of time. So let's say an investor sees X amount, let's say 100 or 1,000 deals a week, a month, a year, right? So what I came to realize is that many of them have some sort of ground rules. You know, if they get a cold email with, you know, not even their name in the, it just goes, I also delete it. If they don't even care to write my name, it's like, hi, I'm this company. So that's some ground rules. In general, cold emails could work, but then it needs to have some sort of special flavor. It's just high risk and it's easy for it to be unanswered. But if you'd refer to someone, that's just, you know, it's multiplying your odds for getting a response because you're using someone that person knows, and that gives you some sort of trust. It's all about trust, right?
Exactly.
If you get a 2-opt intro, you would definitely be able to talk to the person. It requires some more, but that's what I would recommend when you're kind of at this, if you kind of starting from scratch, use someone you know to get to someone you know. And one anecdote I can share without going into detail is like, if you want to get to know a very, very hard to know person, I like to say it's several steps to get to that person. So alternative one, you could send a cold email to the person. Most likely it will not respond, because if it's a very, very sought after individual or very busy or very, you know, it could be a famous individual as well, you're never going to, they're most likely not going to respond. They could reply, but the likelihood is very short. So there's one example where we were, this company was trying to get in touch with a very, very, very hard to get in individual of obvious reasons. And it started with them talking to someone in like layer 1, and then they were like, you know, oh, you should talk to this person. And then so this person was like, hey, give an intro to this person. That person has trust to this person. Like the person is like, hey, you should talk to this person. And then
are you talking about Björn? Are you talking about Björn from Recharge?
Yeah.
Yeah, he shared his story.
Yeah, of course, he shared his story. But it's interesting because when I got to know him, he had already been through that journey, and I gave him credit for that. And I said, listen, it took you a while, but it got you into that room, and it got you that investment. It got you, but it's a lot of effort. It's just like, you know, exercise. It takes a long time to see results, but people are like often you have the short time. So that's why often I would say that, you know, fundraising takes time, because these things have a very natural tendency. And here's the thing. You often only get one chance to convince someone like that, right? And the first impression is everything. So you could be lucky to get 15 minutes of the time on a cold email, but then also that person has already made up some sort of opinion before you meet that person. However, if it goes through the steps and people that person trusts has already kind of vouched for you, then that person has a totally different opinion, and then they already have this positive feeling going into a meeting. So it's
if I can sum up, you know, for founders, they need to remember that they're in it for the long term. This is a long-term game, so they better start building their network from the beginning. Network building is part of the job of a CEO. If they think that this can be outsourced or hire an agent, even if you're kind of like playing that matchmaking now, because it's so tough to get in touch with investors. So now you are allowing some startups to access quickly investors via you, basically. It is a long-term game. There are not a lot of people with your network and profile who do that for a living. So founders who don't have access to people like you or like me, they have to do it the hard way, which is building their network along the way and making sure that they have a long timeline for fundraising. So the network needs to be built over years continuously, and fundraising cannot be done in 4 months, in 6 months, or 9 months. It's very short. Some do manage to raise money quickly, but it's because they have relationships from the past that actually know them and invest in them. It's never a quick fix fundraising.
Yeah, and I would like to say this is like a craft, and it changes all the time. But it's like the better investor, the harder it is to get on board. And then when I say better, it's more capital, better track record, bigger network again. And that person has used many years to get to that position. So getting that best investor on board is hard. So that's kind of it's always kind of knowing where are you in the pecking order, where are you on that journey. And a lot of companies I meet, they don't really understand where they are on that journey. And I guess what I become is more like a gatekeeper. I can if I vet the company and I believe in the company, I make the introduction to the company. I'm on board with that company. So I have a different model than just a broker. Like I'm actually an angel investor, but what I do is I invest my time into the company. So it's a hybrid between an advisor and angel investor. However, I need to believe in the case myself. But what I'm looking for is so I think my advice is like if you want to get in touch with a super interesting investor, but you don't know the person, ideally you want to know someone that knows that person. And if you don't have that, you want someone to knows. Again, you just have to draw that line and start rolling that ladder backwards, right? But this is the fact is that this is the same in any industry. You're always if you're a newbie in any industry, it could be a lawyer or doctor, whatever. It's the same thing. You're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You could have some competitive advantage, if you have parents who have already been in that industry. Of course, it gives you some help, but it also could give you some disadvantage as well, because then people are already, oh yeah, you're the son or sister or brother or whatever. So that also gives you. So that's it's push and pull, but again, it's like it's investing time and energy, and the longer you invest time and energy, the better it will turn.
What would you say are the most common mistakes founders make when they are fundraising and approaching investors?
I think it's they're focusing too much on how you can help them instead of the opposite, right? It's very transactional, right? So it's like, hey, I had this awesome company, you should invest in the company.
Yeah.
Right? This is sales, this is dating. So it's like, and the earlier round, it's much more about chemistry and vision and like getting people to be part of something. The longer your fundraise, it's more about the metrics and less about kind of the early teams. But that's a mistake I see often. Also, how to write an email. There should be that could take years to be really good at writing emails and understanding, how to, I see long emails, which is a terrible mistake to do. Also understanding, but the most important is just like, you try to build a personal relationship with the person. This is kind of a cliche, but like,
I know.
I got the advice, if you ask for money, you're going to get advice. But if you ask advice and the person is an investor, and he ends up liking you, most likely the investor is going to be curious about, okay, are you raising money?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's about like, everyone likes to talk about themselves. Everyone likes to be the expert. So reach out to the person. And it's like, okay, it's like turn it around. It's like, okay, I want to get to know you, because I want to know if you are an investor that would make sense to work with. How can I? So if you turn that around, it's more likely that person is gonna, you're gonna be more a likable person. So I think focus more on how you can provide value to others. How can you become likable? How can you become someone that they enjoy to be around? That should be your first focus. Forget about your company. It's like, hey, I enjoy this person is cool, and show that you have character, show that you have integrity, show that you are a person that people like. If you're not able to show that, forget your company, right? So I think people turn it around and they're focused too much about like, I'm building this and that. It's like, who cares if the investors don't really thinks you're a person that they want to do work with? You're never going to get investments anyway.
I got that a few days ago. A founder reached out to me, and he basically straight away, so straight away he asked me, he said like, okay, so here is the deal. You invest 200,000 euros and you get 10% of the company. And it was really just about money, money, money.
Hmm.
And I answered and I said, but before that, I have no clue what you even do. And I don't know you. So can we just start by getting to know each other?
Hmm.
And he's like, yeah, we can do that, but I just want to make sure you're on board. And how much can you invest? I'm like, but this is not how you start the relationship. I first want to know, like, do I like what you're doing? Do I like you as an individual? Do you like me as an individual? What is the, how can I support you other than money?
Hmm.
So I found and he's not the only one. This is the kind of emails you get in your mailbox. Um, it's really missing a lot of, unfortunately, social intelligence,
Yeah.
which is the only thing you need when you're fundraising. Social intelligence and
Yeah, I think
relationship.
that's spot on. Like social intelligence is kind of maybe one of the most important things. And if you have enough self-awareness that you don't have that as a strength, then
Yeah.
I can share an anecdote from which is could hopefully provide value. Me and my co-founder, when we were raising money after we got Tron on board, she introduced me to Dale Carnegie. I never heard of Dale Carnegie. She gave me even this book, this is the classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, etc. And then we started to apply a lot of it. And it's very simple. It was like when we really used a lot of time into kind of our emails. We really used many hours on writing the perfect email. And it was very simple. It was like, hey, Raya, like I talked to this person that I know that you enjoy or respect, etc., and they really recommend us to talk to you. We know that you're really good in terms of these B2B experience, blah blah. It would be awesome to get 50 minutes of your time to get some feedback on our business model, because we know with your experience that you are an expert on this, right? We had probably 99% the reply rate on that, and it was many of them was even cold emails, right? But it was just so perfectly, and then we would tweak it, right? And the thing is that it was super sincere. We really wanted this, but it was the approach, right? But
Intention.
again, that comes down to understanding like how human psychology works, and to build on top of that, and like the best salespeople, you don't even realize that you bought anything from the person, right? Because you're just drawn into it. So they make you talk, they make you understand, and then in the end, it's like you're kind of just asking where do I sign, right? So it's about understanding how human psychology works, and in the end, it's just about trust. If you have people's trust, and that's why I enjoy the whole. There are very few assholes in the startup ecosystem, because you don't come along by being asshole. In finance, there's a lot of them. In the law universe, there's a lot of asshole lawyers, etc., etc. In the tech ecosystem, there have been some few. They're not among us anymore. Trust me. Their career, they have a couple of months lifespan and they're gone, and that's a good thing. And I think this trend is going to just continue, and now it's extremely focused on facilitating. It's kind of in sports. The best coaches now are the coaches that manage to get the best out of the players. It's not like shouting and scolding. It's not. No, it's about nurturing and understanding, how do I get this person to shine. And this is also how you see a lot of investors working with founders. So understand these things, that the investors out there, they want to help you shine, but you need to kind of show them that you are a person that can shine. And the only way to do that, and a lot of it is about a mentality. It's not necessarily only about skills. You have to show that you have the mentality, that you're coachable. That's extremely, show that you're coachable. Show that when
That you
you
accept feedback, that you're open for feedback, you're flexible.
So speaking of Trond, I met him the first time in June 2017. He didn't invest until October, 30th October. But what happened is that every meeting I had, we had like many meetings. And every time I had a meeting, I would write down everything he said, feedback he said, etc., etc. And then I would do it. And then I came back, I said, Trond, look what everything, told me we already done. And then it turns out I listened to a podcast 6 months later he said, this is everything I look for in a founder. And everything I did was exactly that. I didn't know it at the time. So I started laughing because I was like, okay, it's kind of lucky that everything I did was exactly what he liked. So that was kind of, I was lucky in that sense. But one of the things he said is that he loves when founders are like really hungry to learn, you know, the learning machine. As Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, he explained that what he loved about Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, was he was a learning machine. He had no skill set into going in as a CEO in the big company. He was a design student, but he was just so hungry to learn. So if you could show an investor, it's like, hey, I'm here. I know that I'm young, inexperienced, but I can compensate with, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm willing to be humble and double down on that. And then gradually you build that trust, and then that person is going to embrace you in a sense.
I think that was a very good advice to maybe to sum up. What would you tell a founder who has no network of investors, how to get started? What would be your advice for someone who's gonna start fundraising now with no network?
So it's kind of incremental change. What that means, I said, you know, you have to start. So there is this talk show in Norway called Skavlan, which is like Letterman in the US. So he now has the biggest guests, like Will Smith and Bill Gates have been there, right? When he started 10, 15 years ago, he didn't call, hey, Bill Gates, you want to come on my show? He started out with, you know, he was a journalist. So he would invite his journalist friend on. And then the next week, he would maybe invite someone who was like 5% more famous or 5%. So it's kind of, so I call it the Skavlan effect. It's like you have to start, but what you can do is you can piggyback. And you can see this with podcasts as well. If you want to get a big podcast start, you have to build kind of some track record around, look at our previous guests, right? So you can use that same psychology in terms of, you want to build a network, start with the people you know. Who do you know that knows someone? So hopefully you have friends, right? So start with your friends and say, hey, can you introduce me to someone in your network who has some knowledge with my industry? And you start there.
Yes.
And then I hopefully get an introduction. You have a coffee with that person. And then that person is like, hey, I like you. Ideally, you want the person to say that after coffee. Hey, I'll help you. Then you ask them, could you introduce me to someone? And then gradually you're getting closer and you're building a network. But what you want when you meet that person, you want to be appreciative of their time. You want to really soak in everything they get. So you're there to ask for advice. So that's a way to kind of provide value for that person, is that person is feeling valued.
Yeah.
That their knowledge and experience has some value. Everyone likes to talk about their own acknowledgement and feeling important and feeling that they can provide value. I enjoy talking to founders and they really appreciate my advice. It's one of the best feelings as a professional.
Yeah.
So thinking like that, but like, where am I now? Who could introduce me to someone that they know?
Yeah.
And if you're working if you're jumping off a corporate ladder and being a founder, or you're having some work experience, start with someone that likes and trusts you, and ask that person to introduce to someone in their network, and then you just go on from there. And that's been maybe one of my most valuable ways to grow my network, is I started there. I know that can introduce me, you know, the member at my gym introduced me to Trond. That was kind of a leap. But because of that person's trust to Trond, he was like, okay, this guy's probably all right dude. And
so
he
the advice is
that
not
when I met him, is like, okay, you know, this person, you know, we used to work together in McKinsey, you know, she's really smart and good, you know, glad to hear
the advice
that you
is
guys
start a gym club.
So
the advice is to start a club, a gym, fitness club in the most expensive area in your city. So you get high net worth individuals. No, I get it. Yeah, it's yeah.
But very concrete, since we're airing this on LinkedIn, but a lot of people are creating content on LinkedIn. Like Raya, you're a good example. You've built your own presence by providing value. So that's a very simple, like, you know, LinkedIn is a very powerful platform today. Try to provide some value or insight, and try to kind of differentiate yourself. Like, look yourself in the mirror. Who am I? What are my strengths? How can I be my most authentic self in a way that people can find value from that? And then kind of grow it from there. But it's about not rushing it. You have to take the one step at a time. And then before you know it, a lot of that, and then the irony starts, or the serendipity starts.
Yeah.
That person knows that person, and that person knows that person, and then the networks effect starts, and then it's like a snowball. Cool. But it takes time to build that snowball. But if you're a likable person, if you provide value, if you're always, maybe my last takeaway, pay it forward. I've always paid it forward. Trond is always, that's funny, when I met him, we were like, hey, he's been doing this 30 years. I'm just starting, and I've been doing it my whole life. And now I'm realizing, okay, maybe this has some value, but it's hard to see it in the short term. Yeah. But if every time you meet someone, it's like, how can I help you?
Exactly.
I started to when I have coffees now, I was like, how can I help you? Because that's my business model now.
That's how I started too.
Yeah. If I'm always helping people, people will come to me. So I'm privileged to actually use my time to ask that question every day. How can I help you? Because the more I'm able to help you, the more exciting opportunities is going to come my way. Thank
you, Daniel, for for this advice. A lot. I took some notes, and I will create a post and let the community and my network learn from you and reach out to you. So if they want to reach out to you, how do they approach you? LinkedIn?
So
do you want to
I'm not that, I have a hard time of accepting people I haven't met, because it just becomes, if I lose control of that, then what's the value, right?
How can they pitch to you?
No, I think it's be short, concrete, and, you know, tell me why should I meet you? Like, like is there something you want me to help you with? Sure, but be very specific. Is there and again, it's like, we all have, I'm about to become a father, so it's bad timing to reach out to me now. But just think that people are busy. If I don't have a relationship to you,
very good advice.
Like, where do you come in on the list of priorities if I already have 100 people I'm in touch with, right? So that doesn't mean that I'm not going to help you, but again, I need to make my own priorities. You need to make your own priorities. So it's you know, I'm trying to give a really honest answer here, but reaching out to people cold, unless it's really like something very specific. But again, if there's something I'm very personal, passionate about, it's different. Like if you're talking about football or, you know, mental health and stuff like that, I'm much more likely. But if it's like, hey, I have a startup, can you look through my data? Blah, blah, blah. It's like
it's another topic. We can talk about that.
Yeah, that's another hour, because again, it's about
profiling.
It's very complicated, this, but in usual, I don't really accept people on LinkedIn if I haven't really met you, because how can that have any value for you or me? That's how I see it. But and if you're gonna add me, try to have a very specific context. Like, okay, I saw you on this talk and I really appreciate it. Of course, I'll add you, because I'll connect with you, because I appreciate that you're giving me some sort of compliment. But other than that, yeah, a follow-up session, because I find this very interesting topic, because this is a problem today, because we're being bombarded from all. So how do you kind of draw that line?
We'll do another session about this particular topic. Thank you for today, and we speak soon.